we're going out to the Far East to do some Chinese spare ribs. Now here's the ingredients you're going to need today. These are for the marinade and of course your baby back ribs. We're going to start off by prepping our ribs and just take that membrane off the bottom side of those. Just loosen it at one end. Go ahead and grab it with some paper towel and you'll find that you can hold on to that and pull it right off of there. Absolutely no problem whatsoever. Now rather than do these ribs like we would normally do barbecued ribs, what we do with these is we cut them into 2 bone segments. So we're going to go all the way down the line and cut these. Now normally if you would get these in a Chinese restaurant, what they would typically do is to use a St. Louis cut, and they would cut the ribs in half lengthways and then cut them into segments, and then you just get the short segments. We're using these nice thick baby backs so you get a lot more meat. These are going to be tender and delicious, and they're going to be juicy, and you're not going to have to cook them for 5 hours like you would normally with barbecued ribs. Okay, we've got them all cut up. Now we're going to go ahead and use a large Ziploc bag, put these in there. This is for our marinade. We're going to marinate these today for 1 hour. Now you can go a little longer if you have to, but you don't want to go much longer or you risk the chance of these becoming too salty. So in our food processor we got our soy sauce, we've got our sugar, got our garlic cloves in there. Go ahead and put in our 5-spice powder. There's our dry sherry. Okay, this is our hoisin sauce. And you want to make sure you scrape this out. This is pretty thick, so we want to make sure we get all of it. We don't want to leave any in the cup. And then once we got that done, we're going to use our red food coloring. Now the Chinese like to put this in here. I'm not sure why they do it. We all know that the Chinese think that red's a lucky color. I also suspect it might be a case of them trying to imitate the red color they got when they originally smoked these ribs on wood fires back home. But in any case, going to a restaurant these days, the ribs you're going to get are going to be red. And that's the reason why they put red food coloring all over it. So we blended it up real good. Got our garlic all minced in there real well. We're going to go ahead, take our bag, and we're going to pour this in here. Now, this is going to be one of those occasions where we're going to actually use this marinade after we get done marinating our ribs. Okay, and what we're going to do is once we're done marinating the ribs in it, we're going to pour it into a cup and we're going to use it to brush onto our ribs while we're cooking. Now you never want to use a marinade as a sauce after you've used it as a marinade with raw meat. But to just brush it on the meat while it's cooking and then to cook the meat afterwards with it on there is perfectly okay. It's no different than when it was in here originally. So we squeezed the air out of our bag, got it sealed up nice and tight, and we're going to go ahead and wrap that up, make sure our ribs are in there. We're going to let them sit at room temperature. We're going to let those marinate, like I said, for 1 hour, possibly an hour and a half if you have to. You know, something comes up and you can't really get to them, that'll be okay. Don't let them go for much longer than that. Now for our cooking method. We've got a foil pan here that we filled halfway up with water. We put a wire rack on top of it. What we're going to do is set our ribs on top of that rack. We're going to put that into our wood probe. Now what this is going to do is it's going to act like a wet smoker, but it's also going to steam these ribs a lot more than they would be normally with a wet smoker. So it's going to keep them nice and moist, keep them from drying out, and it's also going to help to accelerate the cooking process while we cook them. Now as I said earlier, we're going to go ahead and reserve the marinade. We're going to use this to brush on our ribs as we're cooking them. Go ahead and put that in a cup. Get your silicone brush or whatever you normally use to mop sauce on, because that's what we're going to be doing with this. Got our ribs all ready to go. Let's go outside to our wood pro. Now we've preheated our wood pro to 350 degrees. We're going to be cooking these ribs today for 2 hours and about 5 to 10 minutes. So we're going to start out 350 degrees. We're going to go ahead and put our aluminum foil pan with the water and the ribs on it right in the center of our wood pro grill. Just going to close that up and come back in an hour. Okay, our first hour's up. We're going to open this up, take our brush, take our marinade, and we're going to brush it on both sides of these ribs. Okay, first we're going to start with the top, brush it on real well, then we're going to flip the ribs over and we're going to brush it on the bottoms. Okay, we've got our marinade brushed on both sides of our ribs now. We're going to close this up. We're going to cook it for 1 more hour at 350 degrees. Okay, that hour's up. See, those ribs are looking good. Once again, we're going to brush both sides of these ribs. Want to make sure that we get plenty of this marinade on there. Coat them really good. Make sure you get the sides and the ends. Now this time, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take that rack off of that pan of water. We're going to take the pan out of there and we're going to leave the rack sitting right on the grill. What we want to do is leave it in there for about 10 to 15 minutes, just long enough to set that marinade and set that sauce so it's nice and thick and sticky on there. Okay, we don't want it to be runny. We want to make sure it gets cooked well. Like I said, brush it on there good. Make sure you get a good coating and then just leave it. All right, our 10 minutes is up. There's our delicious ribs. Let's take them in and plate them up. Today we've done some steamed pork buns. We've got some stir-fried bean sprouts there with pea pods and some special fried rice. Enjoy.